La emisión está comenzando. Todos los asistentes están en modo de solo escucha.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all who are on the other side, our audience at PNI Madrid chapter, our elite chapters in Latin America, Buenos Aires, Nuevo Cuyo, Montevideo, Cajamarca, Santa Cruz, Asunción, Venezuela, and Guatemala. We also welcome the remaining chapters in Latin America invited to this presentation, and all of you who are listening from Spain and from any corner of the world. We appreciate your interest and assistance. I am Rafa Pagan, volunteers of webinar areas, and together with our area manager, Jesus Vázquez, and our fellow Jose Barato, Ninfa Muñoz, and Angeles Gomez, we are pleased to present the interesting webinar of VICKEN BAHLAWANIan PMBOK Guide 7th edition and the changes to the new PMP exam. First of all, many thanks, VICKEN, for your cooperation and for sharing your experience and knowledge with the subject as you present today. We are now 260 attendees registered from different countries. Thank you very much to all of you. In this paper, VICKEN will update us with the latest changes in PMBOK Guide 7th edition and the new 2021 PMP exam. Our speaker, VICKEN BAHLAWANIan, is MBA, PGMP, PMP, RMP, ACP, PBA, CBAP, CSM, and CS Certified Scrum Product Owner. Also, he is a PNI Authorized Instructor, Director of Formatech, and Portfolio Program Project and Risk Management Consultant and Trainer. I want to remember you that you are obtaining one PDU, being the report of this PDU under your responsibility. We will send you otherwise your email with the unnecessary instructions for reporting this PDU and the corresponding code. You can ask your questions on your platform to VICKEN and will be answered at the end of the presentation. Soon you will also have the webinar recorded available on our YouTube channel, which you can also access from the PNI Madrid chapter website also. Without further delay, I'll leave you with VICKEN BAHLAWANIan and this webinar PMBOK Guide 7th edition and the changes to the new PMP exam. VICKEN, as you please.
Thank you, Rafa. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We have a big crowd today. Everybody is interested in knowing or understanding what changes have been there by PMI in terms of project management. I'm going to guide you through all the changes. Do please ask any questions that you would like related to PMP or any PMI related topic or certification. So let's, first of all, thank you, Rava, and thank you, PMI Madrid, for hosting me, and thank you all the other fellow chapters for being present here, and good afternoon and good evening, everybody. And let's see what is our agenda today. Today, we're going to do a quick overview of PMI and their certifications, just a minute. I know most of you know what PMI is and what PMI represents. Then we're going to do an overview of the PMBOK 7th edition. What has been changed compared to the previous edition? What's new? What has been changed and by how much and why? Then we're going to do an overview of the new PMP exam. Try to understand what's the link between the PMP exam and the new PMBOK 7th edition guide. Is there a link? Shall we do the exam? Shall we postpone the exam? What do we think about the exam, do's and don'ts about the exam, and then I'll take your Q&A at the end and we'll answer any questions you may have. So, quick intro about PMI. I guess most of you already know PMI, world leading association when it comes to portfolio program project management. More than 2.9 million professionals, including 600,000 plus members from 214 countries, more than 300 chapters with a lot of volunteers. We are interested today in one of PMI certification, which is the most famous, the PMP, which more than 1,100,000 people are already certified in it. The other certifications, I'm sure you had the time to discuss them on the other sessions. If you have any inquiries about them, we can do them in the Q&A. So we are focusing on the PMP certification, but mainly we are focusing on where PMI, the leading organization when it comes to project management industry, is taking us. what will be the project management industry, especially after the recent changes in the last 2 years in the world with the COVID and stuff. So PMI, even though PMI, it's their 51st year this year, PMI have, you know, been there for 51 years, but their PMBOK started only in 1996 with the first edition. Then every 4 year, they release a new edition, or they update their edition with a newer PMBOK guide. PMBOK stands for Project Management Body of Knowledge, and it is the reference book when it comes to the PMP exam or project management standard in general. If you see in the recent, from the beginning till recently, the focus of PMI was in the different knowledge areas of project management, 9 knowledge areas of project management. In the fourth, between the 4th and the 5th, they changed to 10. They added stakeholder management and the processes. So the PMBOK guide was process-based. It was process-based. The PMBOK guide between version 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, it was focused on what do we need to do in order to do a project? What do we do in initiation? What do we do in planning? What do we do in execution? What do we do in monitoring and control? What do we do in closing? So we had the project management process groups, and in each process group, we used to have processes. In initiation, we had processes. In planning, we had processes. Between the different editions of the PMBOK, what changes were there? Basically, they used to revise the processes, change their tools and techniques, you know, add an input or two, or add new processes, sometimes removing processes, sometimes adding processes, sometimes renaming processes, and so on. So mainly those were the big changes. The PMBOK guide in all their edition remained process-based material, process-based instructions, teaching project managers what they need to do in order to do a project. In the 6th edition, it was the first time they have introduced, I cannot say they have Agile, they have introduced Agile with very limited introduction and some concepts in the PMBOK guide, and an additional practice guide with the book to explain to us or give us a bit of flavor about agility. Okay, all the previous edition did not have agility. Now, what about the new? What about the new PMBOK 7? So this is a quick summary of what has been changed between the last edition, which is the 6th edition, and the 7th edition. First of all, it is no longer prescriptive. It is now based on, it's no longer process-based. It's no longer focused on processes. It is now what we call principle-based. So what PMI has done, PMI has changed the concept of having processes. We still have processes, but we went from a process-based into principle-based. Principle-based means it is built on a set of principles, set of mindset, something that guide the project manager what he is doing, but moreover why he is doing, rather than the how. So if we see this, it is the emphasis has moved on the how and not the why, or not the what or the why, how we should do it. And in order to answer the how, we created, or they created, a set of principles, 12 to be exact, 12 principles to guide the project managers, but not only project managers, everybody working in the project, with a mindset, a way of thinking, set of actions, what we need to do, set of behaviors, how to react, how to behave, which is reflected in body of knowledge of the project delivery. But now we're not only, they did not only introduce principle rather than process focused, rather than having a process focus, now we have principle based. On top of that, the principle based will be depending on the project delivery. So we have more than one delivery now. In the past, we used to have one delivery method, which is the waterfall or the traditional or the predictive. We used to have the predictive delivery method where we predict everything, we plan everything, then we execute everything. Now in the new PMBOK 7th edition, we have agile, also known as adaptive delivery, and hybrid, which is a combination of predictive and adaptive. So not only that, PMI are introducing concepts like lean. So even not related to delivery, but part of the principles are lean principles. Part of the principles are customer-centered design principles. So they took ideas from agility, they took ideas from lean, they took ideas from design thinking or customer-centered design, and they came up with 12 principles to guide the project team members and the project managers and the sponsors and the customers and so on. In the past, all their focus was on how to convert inputs into outputs using tools and techniques. Okay, now we have domains, and you're going to see we have 3 domains. So we just mentioned we have 12 principles. We're going to see them in a minute. Now we have 3 domains, and the 3 domains are people, process, and business environment. So they came up with 3 domains: people, process, and business environment. In each of these 3 domains, we have certain, what we call them now, tasks, things we need to do in order to manage the people, in order to manage the processes, and in order to manage the business environment. So we have domains rather than processes. We have domains which interact with each other, interdependent areas of activity with performance outcomes, as well as an overview of the commonly used tools and techniques. We no longer focus on the deliverable. We focus now on the outcome. And this is one of the other changes that PMI has changed. In the past, okay, we care about projects giving us deliverables. Okay, now we care about project giving us outcome, or as we call it, value to the customer. I'll explain to you about this a little bit later when we talk about the principles, and we can see how this change is really important. What is the difference between a deliverable and a value? A deliverable is a deliverable, like the output, the building, the car, the mobile app. But the value is what can you get as a customer or as a user from that deliverable. So now PMI are not focusing on deliverable as much as focusing on how can I achieve the outcome or the value. There has been no change to the project environment, which is the environment of the project, how it affects. We still have that. In the past, we used to say, in the 6th edition and all the editions before, we used to say that the PMBOK applies to most projects most of the time. 7th edition, it applies to any project. Why in the past we used to say most projects most of the time? Because we didn't have all these agility and hybrid and lean, Now, with the introduction of these additional frameworks or methodologies, now the PMBOK covers almost any way of doing a project. Whether you're doing an agile project or an adaptive project or a traditional project, the PMBOK will cover this information. Previously, the PMBOK was primarily for project managers. Now, anyone involved in the project, whether it's a project leader or a manager or a team, member or a sponsor, or even product owners, which is the representative from the client side. Make sense? In the past, another concept was there was references of tailoring, but no specific guidelines. Tailoring means how we customize the PMBOK to fit our environment. Remember, this is a book. It's a guide telling us how to do project management. In the past, there was a page or a paragraph about tailoring consideration. Now, there is a big chapter about specific tailoring guidance. There is a big chapter about how to tailor the PMBOK 7 to fit your organization, to fit your industry, to fit your project, to fit your exact, project, how to tailor it, how to customize it to exactly fit your organization. This is the summary. Let's go a little bit more details. 7 things you need to know about the PMBOK. Number one, the book comes in 2 parts. The book comes in 2 parts. So by the way, you can actually go to pmi.org now, not now, after the session. After you log in, if you remember, if you are a member, you can actually go to the PMBOK guide and you can download the 7th edition. The English version is available. I'm not sure about the Spanish version. I did not check, but they promise that all the translated languages will be available by August 1, which is what, 1 week later. So if the Spanish version is not available now, you can see the English version just to have an idea. But all the translated languages will be available in a week's time based on what PMI told us. So the 7th edition contains 2 books. It's 1 book, but 2 parts inside that book. Okay, 1 part, okay, is the standard for project management based on the American National Standard Institute. The 6th edition and even 5th edition used to have this. So it's 2 sections. 1 section explains to you about, project management. The 2nd section is the standard, which writes the book in a way that is a standard. And the 2nd section is the guide to the project management body of the knowledge. So in this guide, we will see the 12 principles. We will see the tailoring consideration. We will see all these concepts. And in the standard, we're going to see the actual processes and how we're going to do the project management. All right. So the overall goal of the PMBOK edition is to make the content more user-friendly and relevant to project managers. People used to say that the PMBOK 4th edition and the 5th edition was too technical, too much technical, too much writing. People did not love it. 6th edition was better. 6th edition was much better, was more user-friendly. And with the introduction of a little bit of agility, the 6th edition was the best. The 7th edition is even better from the perspective of user-friendliness. It includes predictive, it includes hybrid, it includes adaptive, it includes agile approaches. So they're not only explaining traditional project management, they're explaining about all these tools and techniques, about all these different frameworks, or how we can, all these methodologies of doing project management. We are moving away from processes to principles. 12 project management principles. In the draft of the, it's not a draft anymore, and it tells us how we're going to do project management. By the way, if you don't know about principles, this is not something new in the project management. Like if you read Scrum has principles, 12 also. If you read Prince 2 has principles. If you learn about ITIL is based on principles. If you read other, project or lean methodologies, they somehow, some of them are principle based. So it's not something new in the project management industry that, oh, suddenly we have something called principles. No. Principles have been there for a while. Okay, but PMI was always focused on processes. Now they realized, everybody is moving into the principles direction, and we need to move as well. So what are these 12 principles? Okay, these are the 12 principles. By the way, it's one big chapter in the book about these principles, and they talk about each of these principles. Each of these principles is reviewed 3 to 4 pages on each of these principles. An entire big section, a big chapter is given on these principles. 12 principles provide guidance. It provides a guidance to the project manager for effective project management. The degree of application of this principle, of course, it depends on the project, on the environment, etc., etc. But what are these principles? Number 1, be a diligent, respectful, and caring steward. Okay. I don't think this is something completely new. We used to explain these in the 6th or 5th edition as part of ethics and professional, conduct, or professional, code of conduct. So we used to talk about respect and, being diligent and caring about the environment, about the rules and regulation, etc., as part of ethics and professional conduct. So this is something not totally new. Number 2, build a culture of accountability and respect. Yes, respect is something available in some other methodologies as a principle or as a value. Okay, so it's not something new to project management in general. Accountability. In the previous editions, we always used to blame the project manager for failure. So we used to say if the project fails, it is the responsibility and the accountability of the project manager. Now, with the introduction of agility, and if you learn in agility things like Scrum or Kanban or example, in agility, we have something called shared accountability. In agile practices, in lean practices, in some of the agile frameworks, we don't blame the project manager. We share the team, the project manager, the sponsor, the product owner, they all share this accountability. And accordingly, because PMI is introducing these agility concepts, they have to change the way they think about who to blame if the project manager fails. But now they're saying, look, we don't blame the project manager anymore, but the project manager is responsible to create a culture, to build a culture of accountability and respect. So it's your job to make sure that everybody understands that if we fail, everybody is accountable and responsible. So we're going to work together as one whole team. Everybody should understand this and everybody should do their part and have this accountability. Number 3, engage stakeholders to understand their interests and needs. I think this is important. I think this is, if we take from a perspective of business analyst, if we take from a perspective of a product owner, if we take from the perspective of a project manager, I think engaging stakeholders is something very important. And understanding their needs and interests is very important as well. And PMI wants to make sure this, so they're creating this principle, or they're mentioning it in the principle. By the way, if you guys have any questions, please put them on the chat. And if they are specific to these principles, maybe I can right away answer them rather than, waiting them till the end. Number 4, focus on value. This is new for PMI, but this is not new for project management. In agility, in Scrum, in Agile Manifesto, if you have read the Agile Manifesto, if you've done things like ITIL or other, they focus on value. What do you mean focus on value? As a project manager, in all the previous PMI editions, we used to teach and we used to, work in a way that we don't really care about what happens later. All we care about is to give the customer the required deliverable. So a customer comes to you, he wants a mobile app. Okay, you want a mobile app? Yes. What are the requirements? You try to understand the requirements from the customer perspective. Then, in order to have a successful project, all you have to do is to deliver the project scope, which is the requirement that you took from the customer, on time, on cost, on quality. We never cared about value. As long as I give the customer a mobile app, exactly what he wanted, on time, on cost, on quality, I'm done. Successful project manager. Nobody signs up to this mobile app. Who cares? I don't care. Nobody purchases the mobile app. I don't care. Mobile app is not a successful product. I don't care as a project manager. Why? Because I have done my part. He wanted a mobile app. I gave him a mobile app on time, on cost, on quality. That was the old thinking. The new thinking is that in order to have success, your job is to deliver value. Not only you need to deliver the project on scope, on time, on cost, of quality, but also you need to make sure you deliver on value. But to deliver on value is not something easy. You need to then understand why the project is gonna do this product. And when I say why, this is involving business case, trying to understand the reasons, the justification behind the customer needing this. You, as being a project manager, is now your part. In other words, this is very similar to the way we work in Scrum or in Agile projects. The product owner or the customer working with the project manager together as a partner, not as a buyer and a seller relationship. We're working now as a partner. I will help the product owner, the sponsor, the customer get his product, but more than the product, get his value, get his result that he wants. And that will improve me. This, in some other concepts, in ITIL, for example, they call it co-creation of value. Value is no longer created by one entity, by the sponsor or the customer. Value is being created by both the sponsor and the project manager and his team at the same time. This is something very important. And PMI created something they are calling it, value delivery system. You're going to see this value delivery system. I'm jumping here, but I'm coming. Value delivery framework. Now PMI is value oriented. And to do it, they came up with this, a value delivery framework. Your job as a project manager is to deliver this entire chain. Your job as a project manager is to understand the strategy. Strategy, it is something organization. It comes at the portfolio level, at the portfolio manager level. Then the strategy of the organization is converted to objectives or initiatives. These objectives and initiatives are at the program level. Then these will be converted to deliverable with the help, of the project manager at the project level. So your job is to take this deliverable, convert it to capability, capability convert it to outcome, outcome convert it to benefit, and benefit to value. This chain from strategy to achieving value is now a complete chapter. Chapter 2 talks about this value delivery framework. How the project manager is not just a delivery person. It's not just what do you want and I'll give you that. He is part of this chain of converting organizational strategy to value. All right. So that's the one of the big changes, in my opinion, about focusing on value, which is an important principle. Principle number 5, please guys, if you do have questions, please type them on the chat or in the question box and I'll be able to attend them. Question number 5, recognize and respond to systems interactions. Number 6, dealing with people, dealing with stakeholders, importance of the people and stakeholders by motivating them, influencing them, coaching them, and learning from them as well. So it's a two-directional learning. You don't only guide and coach them, you will learn things from them as well. Tailoring the delivery approach. Delivery approach here, they mean delivery, whether it's, predictive delivery, whether it's adaptive delivery, whether it's hybrid delivery. Tailoring, meaning customizing. Customizing the delivery based on context. Context means location. Context means the actual organization. Context means the country. Context means, the stakeholders, etc., etc. Building quality into processes and results. Addressing complexity using knowledge. Addressing complexity using knowledge. What do you mean addressing complexity using knowledge? It means lessons learned. It means retrospective. And then this addressing complexity using knowledge, experience, and learning This is very important. Now, we used to talk about lessons learned. We used to talk about lessons learned in previous versions of PMI. Now we're going beyond that. We're talking about retrospectives. Okay, which is retrospective is a concept where frequent feedback from the customer, frequent feedback from the team member in order to, continuous improvement. And continuous improvement comes from continuous learning and sharing of experiences. Addressing opportunities and threats, which this was there. This is related to risk management. It was part of the PMBOK. Being adaptive and resilient. This is the adaptability, resilient part, agility part, which is very important to today's organization. This is the selling point. You can go to any organization and say the PMBOK Guide 7 is preaching, is pushing for adaptability and resilience, and that's why that's a reason why they should adopt the PMBOK principles. Enabling change to achieve the envisioned future state, and this is a concept from business analysis, or a concept how we can implement change in an organization to achieve the result. These are the 12 principles. I wish I could have the time to discuss about them more, but this is a big chapter. If you download the book, you can go through it and you can read more about these principles. Another change, which might surprise you as well. So you can see so far how we said we are moving away from process-based. The processes are still there, but we will not focus too much on the processes. We will learn about the processes, but not the PMBOK will not be about 47, 49, 44 processes and what are their inputs and outputs. There will be processes. How do you plan the scope? How do you plan the schedule? How do you whatever? Okay, those processes are there. But now the focus is on the principle. Number two, another change. The knowledge areas are no longer. They are replacing the knowledge areas with something they're calling it performance domains. For those of you who are PMP certified, you know the knowledge areas. If you don't know the knowledge areas, let me tell you what are the knowledge areas. The knowledge areas of project management are scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource, communication, risk, procurement, stakeholder, and integration. These were the 10 knowledge areas which were there from the beginning. 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. Stakeholder was not there at the beginning. Then they had the stakeholder, they become 10. Now, forget about all of this. We no longer have knowledge areas. Now we will have 8 performance domains. We don't care about knowledge areas anymore. We care about something, we call it performance domains. So a move from knowledge areas to project performance domains. The PMBOK guide is organized around 8. By the way, the 10 knowledge areas were the chapter. If you read the PMBOK 6 guide and the 5th guide and the 4th guide and the 3rd guide, they were based on these knowledge areas. Each knowledge area was a chapter. Now, no longer. Now we have 8 performance domains. Now, the performance domains are the chapters. Now, each performance domain is a chapter. Okay, what are the performance domains? These are the 8 project performance domains. A lot has changed. And in the structure. Okay, maybe not too much in the processes. Okay, but a lot has changed in the structure. Now I'll go and compare what processes has changed. What are the 8 project performance domains? Number 1, or they're not in order here. Okay. So first, development approach and life cycle. So it is very important for the project manager to decide which development approach, traditional, agile, hybrid, Scrum, Kanban, what development approach is going to use. And basically the life cycle will change. Life cycle meaning initiation, planning, execution will change. Because in agile, we have multiple plannings. We don't have one planning, So accordingly, first, deciding on the development approach and life cycle. Number 2, based on this approach, we know if we're going to do one big plan or we're going to do small plans. And we will also know the execution or the work. Is it going to be one big work, or it's going to be smaller work? And then once we decide on the life cycle and the development approach, and we plan, and then we do the execution, we can then do the delivery. But delivery needs to be checked, compared for performance, results, custom measurement, which is like the monitoring and control. And then in order to maintain and control all of this, we need to deal with risks, which is dealing with uncertainty. And we cannot do all of this unless we engage the stakeholders and we involve the project team. So these are the 8 different project performance domains. Each of them is a complete chapter, in the PMBOK guide. So chapter 1 is introduction. Chapter 2 is about this value delivery framework. Chapter 3 is about the 12 principles. Chapter 3 is about 12 principles. Then the remaining 8 chapters are related, the project performance domains. All right. So far we've seen 12 principles, 8 project performance domains. The book, the new PMBOK guide, contains an expanded list of tools and techniques. Yes, because we used to have so many tools and techniques in the PMBOK guide 6th edition. But when you introduce agility, when you introduce agile concepts, now there are even more tools and techniques. Why? Because agility alone, in agile project management, we already have also so many tools and techniques as well. So we've added all these, agile, lean, principles. We've added things like reviews and retrospective and generalizing specialists and votings, different types of voting, Bosco prioritization, Fist of 5, so many newer tools and techniques. But on top of that, what PMI has done, they have created a website calling it PMI Standards. And they've put all these documents in a digital platform. All these models and methods and documents on artifacts, they put them on the PMI Standard Plus website so that you can, whether you're a project professional or you're a student or you're a teacher or whatever, you can use these techniques and tools, and the digital platform are now available, disregarding if it's an agile or non-agile project. So that's another thing we need to know. A new section with guidance on tailoring has been done. So there is a chapter after the 8 chapters. So chapter 1 introduction, chapter 2 delivery framework, chapter 3 principles, then the 8 project performance domains. Then there's a chapter about tailoring. Tailoring means how do I customize the PMBOK to fit my organization? I'm working on in the middle of the ocean in an oil rig. I'm doing a project in the mountains. How do we customize it? So it has 4 steps. First, you select the initial development approach. Number 2, you tailor the project to fit your organization, your company. Number 3, you tailor the project to fit your project based on the type of the project. If it's an HR project or a marketing project or an IT project or whatever project. And number 4, you keep improving the way you're doing the project and the customization between the 7th edition and your project in order to get the best results. So there is an actual tailoring process available. All right. Next, let me talk to you now as a summary what happens. Now, we said we have now 3 domains. This is something new. We never spoke about domains. People, process, business environment. What happened to the process groups? It's still there. It's still there. The process groups are still there. The process were here. Okay, it's one of the domain now. Process, people, business. These are the 3 domains. But now in the process, we have the initiate, plan, execute, close, monitoring, and control. We used to call these 5 process groups. So now we have 3 domains. Okay, and in the process, we have the process groups. So if you see this picture, it's better explains. Our job is to achieve value. In the past, we used to have project input here, project input. Okay, we input the project initiation. In the closing, we have a deliverable. Okay, now we don't care about deliverable anymore. We care about value. How can we achieve value? Well, you have to do your processes. You have to do your, initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing. But you cannot do them without the people. You cannot do them without the people. So you need to know how to manage the people. You cannot do them unless you understand the business environment, risks, internal and external risks, business environment, rules, regulations, company, and even country, And in order to do all of this, you need to understand value delivery framework, which is that cycle from the company strategy to delivering value. By understanding this, now you can convert, and you can deliver value in your organization or for your customers. 3 domains, okay, which is inside each other. You can see the process inside, it's engulfing them. And the way it is, each of these domains have a percentage of question in the exam. Now you're going to see how the PMBOK is linked to the exam. How the PMBOK guide is linked to the exam. Now let's talk about the exam. We talked about the PMBOK guide. Now we know the PMBOK guide. Introduction, value delivery system, 12 principles, 8 performance domains, tailoring. Okay. What about the exam? What happens to the exam? Exam is not new. Exam has been changed before. Exam was changed in January 2, 2021. The new exam already contains, which new exam? The one that changed in January 2, they're not going to change it again. Everybody who passed the PMP from January 2 till now, and tomorrow and next week and next month, it's on the new 2021 exam. So with the PMBOK being out, the 7th edition, the exam would not change because the exam changed before. Now you might ask, well, how did people study? How did people pass the exam? Well, they studied. PMI prepared material, which is not related to PMBOK 6 or PMBOK 7. They created material and they said, listen, if you want to become project manager, these are the concepts you need to know. Go and study. How you study, from where you study, it doesn't matter as long as you know these concepts. So the exam changed in January 2, 2021, and it will not change with the introduction of the PMBOK 7th edition. Okay, what do we need to know? First of all, let me talk to you about the exam quickly. It's no longer 200 questions. It's now 180 questions. 180 questions. How much time? 230 minutes. Actually, that's like 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours plus 10-minute break plus 10-minute break. So you have 2 breaks. You have 2 breaks in the 3.5 hours. So maybe you do, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, and then you take, breaks in between. So 3.5 full exam hours plus 2 breaks. This is 210, 10, that's 230 total minutes. Online, if you want to. If you want to go to an exam center, it's still available, but you can do it online from your home. Okay. Questions, most of the questions are still, multiple choice. Multiple choice. But now, some or few questions can be multiple response, select more than one, or matching. Matching means there is a word here and a word there, match, or hotspot, which there is a picture and you have to click on the picture and fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks, they give you a question and then a box where you have to write the answer. But these are very, very few of the questions. The exam is 50% predictive. So 50% of the question is about predictive. And 50% of the questions are about adaptive. And when I say adaptive, it means either agile or hybrid. This is not new. This is since January 2. If you're wondering how did people pass the PMP exam, because they prepared it based on what we call the PMP exam content outline, or ECHO. What's the ECHO? If you go to the PMI website, PMI.org, and then you click on PMP, And then there will be a link, new exam. You click on the new exam, it will show you the new exam. The new exam is now 50% about processes, 42% about people, and 8% about the business environment. What are these? These are the 3 domains. The 3 domains. They already told us about it even before the book was out. Why? Because we needed to prepare for this exam, and they told us about it. And in each of these domains, we have tasks. These are the old processes. They got rid of the old processes. Instead of the processes, now we have tasks. Tasks, more detailed tasks. This is the people domain, which is 42% of the questions in the exam. It's about how you as a project manager deal with people. How do you build a team? How do you define team ground rules? How do you build a shared understanding about the project? How do you negotiate project agreements? How do you empower the project team members and stakeholders? How will I study for this? From 7th edition? You can, because the 7th edition talks about all of this. What about the 6th edition? You also can, because the 6th edition also talks about most of this. Maybe the 6th edition will not talk about maybe emotional intelligence specifically, okay? But you need to know about emotional intelligence. And maybe even the PMBOK 7 don't talk about emotional intelligence. They talk a little bit, but you can Google about emotional intelligence. You want to pass the exam? Then you have to know all these tasks. How do you study? From 6, from 7, from other sources, or on the PMI website, if you click, they will give you a list of resources. How do you do it? Actually, even better, you can take a course. You can take a course with who? With a PMI ATP, authorized training partners. There are selected centers and teachers around the world. They are PMI ATP. And what PMI did, they gave the ATP a special presentation about these. 1 year ago, not now, 1 year ago, they gave us a 2-day training about the changes, and they gave us a PowerPoint presentation, 400 pages. They told us, listen, make your students ready by teaching them these slides. They gave us a 400 slides about all of these 1 year before the PMBOK 7 was out. Okay, so do I study from the 6th edition? You can, because in 6th edition there is this concept, building a team. There is the ground rule concept. There is building the shared. There is negotiation. There is there is empowerment. So it's not like these concepts which you prepare for the exam is completely different. You can use any material to prepare for the exam. So you need to understand that the PMBOK 7, you are not examining on the PMBOK 7. You are examining about your knowledge in project management. Whether you study from the 7th edition or any other edition, it doesn't matter as long as you study. The questions are not specific to inputs, outputs, tools. The questions are more scenario based. They will tell you a project manager working in this environment, having these conditions, what he should do. And based on your experience and your knowledge about these concepts, you need to answer. So what are the tasks? Building a team, defining team ground rules, building shared understanding about the project, negotiating project agreements, empowering team members and stakeholders, ensuring team members, stakeholders are adequately trained, engaging and supporting virtual teams, collaborating with stakeholders, leading a team. All these concepts were there. Addressing and removing impediments, obstacles, and blockers, supporting team performance, managing conflicts, mentoring stakeholders, and promoting team performance through the application of emotional intelligence. And on each of these domains and each of these tasks, we have enablers. We call these enablers. And we have tools. These are the tools, planning poker and fist of 5 and whatever. And we have deliverables. And we have what knowledge I need in order to ace this knowledge area, or not this knowledge area, this particular task. Process. Plan and manage the scope. We know this. It's available in 6th edition. Plan and manage budget and resources. Yes. Plan and manage schedule. Yep. Plan and manage quality of the product and deliverables. Integrate planning activities. Plan and manage procurement. All of these are available in 6th edition. Also, they're available in the 7th edition. Determine appropriate project methodology, methods, and practice. This is not available in 6th edition. While 6th edition talks about agility a little bit, but it doesn't talk about how to determine the best approach to choose this or that, you know? So this is something new. So if you study the 6th edition, maybe you won't find this, you know? But in the 7th edition, this is available. Establishing project governance structure, available in 6th and 7th. Planning and managing project and project closure, yes. Execute project to deliver business value. This is new. This is not available in 6th or 5th edition. This is available in the 7th edition. Managing communication, assessing managing risk, engaging stakeholder, managing project artifact, changes and issues. So most of these are available in 6th edition, with the exceptions of 1 or 2. So even if people did not have the 7th edition, they were able to still take the 6th edition and prepare for the new exam. All right, and these are the things related to the business environment, planning and managing project compliance, evaluating and delivering project benefits and value, addressing internal and external environmental, and supporting organizational change. All of this information are available in what we call the PMP Echo. Google PMP Echo, and you'll know more about how to prepare for the new exam. That's it for me. We talked about the new PMBOK guide, 7th edition, as well as the new changes to the PMP exam. I'll wait for your questions so that I can answer them.
Thank you very much, Vicken, for your interesting presentation. We learned a lot from it. Before asking the question of our attendees, let me invite you, to all of you, not only to attend these webinars, as you have just done, but also to participate as proper speakers. If you have any idea or some interesting topic for our community of project managers, you will be very welcome to contact me and start talking about any potential thing or webinar you may be willing to share with us. I'm going to share my details, contact details with you in the chat box. And now let's start with the first question. I'm going to start asking Vicken question. How do you see all these changes in the PMBOK guide going from the processes to a more abstract level based on principles, as you mentioned? Is going to be very difficult for, or more difficult for somebody starting the project management career to understand project management? Or do you see it as an easy?
When it comes to teaching, in the past, it was easy to teach because all we have to do is to tell the students, listen, we have 10 processes or 30 or 40. Number 1 is this, 1, 2, 3, 4 you do, go study, voila. But the problem, Rafa, when they used to go to the real world, you know, in the real world, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. In the real world, you have to use, you know, your brain to understand environment, customer, stakeholders. It's not like, oh, we bring the book, it says 49 steps. Yalla, step number 1, identify stakeholders. Step number 2, develop project chart. It's not as simple as that. So PMI realized, you know, teaching-wise, it's easy, but reality, practicality, you need a more wider or a principle-based approach, and thus they did the move. By the way, PMI did not do this move because they wanted to. For the past 10 years, people in the industry, on LinkedIn, everybody, every time in the webinars, why you guys are still focusing on process? They used to tell PMI, you should move away from processes. We're teaching our project managers 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the real world, it's not simple 1, 2, 3, 4, you know?
Absolutely, and totally agree with you. And in relation with what you mentioned to these questions, I believe that training actual project managers is going to be more complicated for us because we are going to give them a higher input, a higher effort in trying to understand those principles and integrating those principles into reality. Absolutely. So how do you see the changes in the training program from the old registered training provided to the ATP? What is the competitive advantage when somebody go to an ATP versus other trainers out there?
Sure. First difference, and I believe that's the main difference, is that if in the past, any person can say, I'm a PMP trainer and used to train PMP for a group of participants. And whether they succeed, they're not, that's a different question. But who used to tell the material? Who used to tell this teacher how to train? Himself, based on his, he will read the PMBOK, he will understand the PMBOK, he will create some presentations, and he will create this. Now, if you're an ATP, PMI will give you a PowerPoint presentation, 5 days, sections, lessons, exactly as the exam, and it will give you a material. It will give you exercises. It will give you sample questions. Don't go on the internet, search for sample questions to pass the exam. We will give the trainer the PMP, the presentation. We will give sample questions, 210, 220 questions updated every quarter. We have trained, PMI trains each PMI ATP trainer for 2 days on a train the trainer program, so that all their ATP are ready with material, with content, with questions to prepare participants. It's not easy, because if you're now going to take the PMBOK 6 or 7 and prepare it for the new exam, so many concepts.
Yeah.
So many concepts. How do you teach in 5 days? Traditional project management, agile project management, hybrid project management, lean concepts, all these tools and techniques in 5 days. It's chaos.
It's absolutely, yes, absolutely. And you can just focus on the wrong part of the material and fail the exam.
You can focus more on one area, teach them lean, but in the exam, they're not going to ask too much. So when an ATP instructor is given, when a PMI gives you a presentation and you follow that presentation, it's easy. We know what to do because PMI told us to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, because we have a common interest, VICKEN and I, we both are business analysts and project managers. We get certification from the International Institute of Business Analysis and from also PNI. We have also experience in the agile approach. So when you look for some trainer, be careful. Choose a trainer who has business analysis experience, project manager experience in both agile and predictive approaches. Okay, so he can give you a wider point of view and systematic approach. Absolutely. Let's go for the question from the attendees. Absolutely, it has been a luxury to have you, VICKEN, here. It's one of very well respected professional in the Emirates. So a pleasure to have you here with all us. Let's go with the question from Oscar Lievana. Oscar asks you, does Agile win the battle of project management?
Does Agile what?
Does Agile will win the battle of project management?
Okay. Look, it's a good question, and thank you for asking. Let me give you a final answer. Agility is currently 6 to 10% of all projects in the world. Even though Agile is a big buzzword, but still so many organizations are still not Agile ready or did not adopt Agile. Now, if you're gonna compare traditional versus Agile, there is no winning. 10 years later, 20 years later, Agile will not be the only project manager methodology, because there are so many projects that you cannot do it in an Agile way. Certain construction projects or certain types of agility is a way of thinking or a way of doing. So if you as a project manager only know traditional project management, the predictive way, you have a disadvantage, because there are so many projects. If it's done in an Agile way, it's better. And there are so many projects, if it's done in a predictive way, it's better. That's why we're teaching you both. We're teaching you both. Okay, you cannot say which pizza is better, Napolitana or Margarita. Nobody will win. Nobody will win. Okay, you need to know how to cook both, because you're gonna have some customers who wants Napolitana, you cook them Napolitana, and some other customers wants Margarita, you cook them Margarita. But you need to know both. As a project manager, you need to know both. One will not win over the other. Your expertise is when a customer comes, has an idea, after you understand the idea, to decide, is this better to be done predictive, Agile, or a hybrid? That's what will win.
Yes, I like it very much. Your example from the Italian cooking pizzas. How we make pizza doesn't really care, and the question is value for the user and repeating business for all of us. Okay. And another point you mentioned is also quite interesting. Most of the projects today are product-based approaches. We are creating product solutions. So in the product life cycle, we have maybe a product or conceptualization, visualization, prototype, minimum viable product. And if they penetrate the segment, they become higher, they are going to be escalated, and we are going to prepare a more traditional approach in terms of escalating and doing a pilot or rollout in a global scale. So doesn't really care about it. You need to understand what is the maturity level of the solution and align the delivery approach to the business need. And those has business analysis concept, okay, not project management concept, as already you know. Okay, another question from Esteban Tejedor. Esteban asked you the following question, Vicken. PMBOK 7 doesn't mention the input tools and techniques found then quite useful to organize and minimize, especially input and output from the other editions. Don't you think this can make things more difficult to understand or to classify them mentally, especially for the newer people coming to project management? Would you recommend check both version 8, version 6 and 7, or just focus on the 7th and the last one?
No, version 7 still contains in the standard section inputs and outputs. But what we're saying, we no longer care too much about inputs and outputs. In the past, the exam was based about these. They used to ask question, what is the output of collect requirement process? What is the output of this process? The focus of PMI was, do you know the inputs? Do you know the outputs? That's how you become a PMP certified. With the new edition, inputs and outputs are still there. We're not like, oh, we deleted them. We will not tell you. We will not tell you. You know, no, it's there. We will be telling you a part of the standard second section of the book. There is for each process, what's the input, what's the output, what's the tools and technique. But in the exam, we're not gonna test you. It's not a test about you knowing inputs and outputs. It's a test. Do you know project management, mindset, principles? You're doing a project. There are 3 team members. One team member is not motivated. Why? Because he's doing a task which he doesn't have strength in. What do you do? That's the kind of questions we're going to ask you. Situational, case-based question rather than inputs and outputs.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, you just hit the spot. We go from the knowledge domain. Is something that check if you really know in the exam some terminologies and the tools and techniques, to performance domain is you get to know, very familiar with all the tools and techniques in this 7th or previous edition. That's okay, but that's it. These don't really guarantee you any value coming from that. So you need to reflect that performance level to provide value for the business. Okay, and that is more abstract, more difficult. Absolutely, totally agree with Vicken. You need to know all that really stuff from the previous edition, but you get more familiar with the performance domain, things you bring to business in terms to foster that business change outcome and business value at the end of the day. Absolutely, yeah. It's very good to have you here, my friend Vicken. Thank you. It is quite useful for us to understand this new approach. That is not new. It's something that we need to know. We need to do from the beginning, from the initial project management career. Okay, another question. That's one, maybe the last one. Fernando Jose dice, could you show, please, Vicken, the last slide, the previous one to the last one? I think Fernando wants to take a look to this one.
This or this, maybe.
Okay. Coming from the processes to task. Yeah.
Let him write again the question. Which actual does he wants to see the tasks of the process, or does he wants to see the task of the, because this is the last.
Yeah, this is the one. I think he mentioned that. Okay. So don't forget that this session is going to be recorded. It's been recorded, so you will have available on the PNI chapter, Madrid chapter YouTube, and also VICKEN. He will also distribute by his company and all the social media.
Let me also answer one question I hear a lot. I am PMP. Do I need to read the PMBOK 7? Do I need to be concerned about PMBOK 7? Or khalas, I'm PMP. You have to review the PMBOK 7. You have to go download and review. First of all, you will learn new stuff. You're a PMP, but you're PMP 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, pre-COVID. The way we do project management now have been changed. Yes, you have to be updated with the newer concept. If you're sitting with Rafa and Rafa tells you about, a minimum viable product, you cannot go, what's minimum viable product?
Yeah.
Oh, you're a PMP. Oh, yeah, but in 2003, I got PMP. You need to update your knowledge. I'm not saying do the exam again. No, you're PMP certified, you renew your certification, but you need to download the PMBOK 7 and read it to understand the newer concept in project management.
Okay. Maybe the last one, okay, the previous to the last one, because we are quite hurry. I don't want to get you any problem with your schedule, VICKEN. But these Aranayanins, sorry if I don't spell it right, okay, Anayansi ask you, in your opinion, VICKEN, okay, at the end of the day, in your honest opinion, as always, what is the value of all the changes, okay?
Look, I believe PMI had to do this change. It's not like it's not like they wanted or they had to, because the way we used to do project management 10-15 years ago with the same process base, this was not working. People in the community, they were losing interest in PMP. We were teaching people, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the change they had to do, not because of COVID. This was a case before COVID. Agility for the past 6-7 years have becoming a hot topic, which they didn't have in project management, and they want a big gap. And the concept of delivering a product without focusing on the value and just giving it to the customer because he wants it, without understanding the cycle from the business case, to the operations, it was something missing. I believe it's a right step. It's the correct step. I believe the next edition will be even better because now they rush to release, an edition. I believe there could be so many still improvement to the change, but it's in the right direction. I salute, not because I'm not a PMI member or I'm a fellow practitioner like you guys. I've studied PMP and did the exam, like you. I do not work for PMI. I'm a professional working in the industry like you. I believe they did in the right direction. It could be improved furthermore, but it's the step in the right direction. Rafa.
Absolutely, totally agree with you again, my friend. Perfect. Let's go with the last question. Is something about the extension guide? All the complementary extensions that assisted in the PMBOK guide.
Yes.
Johan Freddy asks you, VICKEN, if the construction extension book will it be updated in relation with the new changes? Something about extensions?
The extension guides were usually a secondary work that PMI used to do. So they release a PMBOK, and then after 6 months or 1 year, they used to work on the extension guides. Will it be updated? I believe so, but I don't have the right information or when and how. Recently, PMI has been focusing a lot on this edition. With the COVID and all these changes, they had to put the PMBOK aside. They postponed it 3 times. They had to put it on the side, and they had to move their exams online and support the exams online. So they were in a turmoil. So worrying about extension in construction, I don't think it was a priority for them. Now that they released the exam online, now that they released the PMBOK 7, I believe now they have time on their hand to work on these, different extensions. But again, it's something we need to see because PMI is changing one more time because I believe there will be change in management as well at the end of the year. So CEO, board of directors stuff will be changed. So by doing that, we really don't know PMI focus will be where. But
Excellent.
I believe they will update the construction extension because it needs an update. The one we have is still a bit old.
Okay, excellent. Pues with this answer of VICKEN BAHLAWANIAN ends our webinar this month. I remind you that with the assistance, you will obtain one PDU. I will send you an email with instructions to get it. Again, thanks to all attendees and VICKEN, especially to you, friend, for sharing your great knowledge. And I want to invite you to September webinar, which we will be published soon on our website and networks. We are waiting for you in September. Have a great summertime. Best regards. Thank you again, VICKEN, and kind regards. See you, all of you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.